Thanks, Tyler, and thank you for tuning in to the Amherst Weekly Report. Hello, and welcome to the Amherst Weekly Report from Amherst Media. I'm Ariana Gonzalez. On March 20th at 4:30 p.m., members of Demilitarized Western Mass conducted a standout protest outside of the defense manufacturer L3Harris in Northampton. The action raised consciousness surrounding the anniversary of the U.S. invasion of Iraq and the destructive impact of the military-industrial complex. Demilitarized Western Mass described themselves as a collective of anti-war, anti-imperialist, and abolitionist activists that seek to enact change through education, advocacy, divestment, and direct action. Despite the so-called progressive nature of the city, L3Harris sits comfortably in Northampton. But some residents like Sarah Farine, decided to take action. Farine says, "When I learned that the city's largest weapons manufacturer was right here in Northampton, it was clear I needed to get involved." With the upcoming 20-year anniversary of the war on Iraq, Farine emphasized the importance of raising awareness with other activists in order to create a local community to help resolve this issue. As reported by the American Friends Service Committee, L3Harris is responsible for the militarization of the U.S. border. As manufacturers of weapons, it's also implicated in war crimes that its buyers committed. In the company's past history, one of L3Harris's components titled Joint Direct Munitions contributed to the death of 166 people, including 89 children in the 2014 assault on Gaza and 44 civilians in the bomb of Al-Wada Street in 2021. Lead organizer Nick Morton stands outside of L3Harris every week in an attempt to urge employees to reconsider their work. Morton says war must be rejected by humanity, and that the wealthy and politically powerful must be deprived of the tools of war. Demilitarized Western Mass imagines a world of safety that is not built on divisive fear or violence, but one of care. They believe that through collective action, manufacturers such as L3Harris can be abolished. Until then, expect them at the doorstep of L3Harris. Now for our next story, retirement has proven to be a familiar concept in Amherst this year. Following the steps of UMass Chancellor Kumble Subbaswamy, Amherst Police Chief Scott Livingstone is set to retire over the summer as well. Amherst Police Chief Officer Scott Livingstone is retiring in May. He announced his retirement in a press release last Friday. The press release includes a goodbye message from Livingstone stating, "This has been just an incredible journey over the last 46 years. I have been blessed with unwavering support from my wife, Riz, and my children. The individuals I have worked with, both past and present, are absolutely the best people I know." Livingstone started his career as a community service officer right out of high school in Granby in 1977. He continued his tenure for the next 46 years. Through the 80s, Livingstone rose up to the special officer trainee position, and through the early 2000s, he became a lieutenant and captain. He graduated from the FBI National Academy in 2009 and was granted the position of police chief that same year. Livingstone is set to retire on May 27th. Housing in Amherst has been a topic of conversation for a long time now. On February 21st, the Amherst Planning Board held a special meeting to discuss housing expansion in response to recent proposed zoning changes and whether or not to build. Previously, town councilors Pat DeAngelis and Mandy Jo Haneke suggested easing the permitting of multifamily housing and allowing said housing to be built in more areas of town. In enacting these initiatives, DeAngelis and Haneke hoped that the town would achieve the desired effect of increased housing. However, multiple members of the planning board felt differently. It thought that construction of multifamily homes should occur in areas where there is existing housing and space to expand instead of constructing homes across town. They reasoned that constructing across town might negatively affect other neighborhoods that have not proven viable for housing. During this discussion of housing density, Planning Board Chair Doug Marshall stated that the Puffton Village and Brandywine and Townhouse Apartments locations in area on University Drive as potential places to erect additional housing. The main objective of the Planning Board is to formulate a plan to increase housing. The board also wants to make units affordable for residents. The housing conversation has been ongoing in Amherst, with the shortage of student housing remaining a relevant topic among residents and college officials alike. An increase in housing could alleviate the student housing shortage. The Planning Board did not outline any next steps at the end of the meeting, though members expressed the intention to reconvene and generate concrete plans to address Amherst's housing situation. Now to Tyler Beraldi and Emily Tarinelli with the Sports Report.
Thanks, Ariana. After another successful year of Minute Women basketball, UMass finally saw their season come to a close against Harvard this week, falling 89-87. The team made it to the second round of the Women's National Invitational Tournament, and the back-and-forth affair came down to the wire, with the two squads exchanging comebacks in the final quarter. Despite the loss, Sam Breen's 14 points led to her breaking the UMass single-season scoring record, totaling 589 points, two more than former holder Sue Peters had in the 1978-79 season. Sydney Taylor paved the way in this game, though, dropping 21 points, including a comeback-sparking three-pointer in the fourth, and Bernia Mayo put up 15 while setting her career high in assists with 10. The UMass Minutewomen finish up at 27-6, having brought women's basketball to the forefront of campus athletics, with way more than enough to look back on with pride. Going from one dominant women's team to another, Minute Women's lacrosse currently stands at 9-1, running absolutely roughshod through the A-10. Following last season's loss in the A-10 championship and subsequent NCAA tournament, the squad is playing with a definite chip on their shoulder and appear to be even more of a daunting opponent than they were last season. Their sole loss came against Boston College on February 15th, and they've been absolutely undefeated since. Their most recent game was a 19-5 blowout against LaSalle, as Alex Finn scored 3 goals and 5 assists, while Charlotte Wilmoth scored 5 for herself at her game high. Their next matchup will be against St. Bonaventure, who stand at 4-6 on March 25th. UMass men's lacrosse, on the other hand, has had a much more grounded season. The team currently stands at 4-3 with a matchup against Brown on March 25th. The team currently averages 8.86 goals scored against them per game, making them first in the A-10 for scoring defense and 5th nationally, with those exact same rankings in saves per game. Senior goalkeeper Matt Note has been the standout player thus far, leading the nation with a .632 save percentage, while also being 4th in goals against average at 8.71 and 6th in saves per game at 14.71. The team will be looking to bounce back after a 5-11 loss against Rutgers and get that ball rolling back in a positive direction. Finishing up with UMass baseball, the team is not off to the strongest of starts, currently standing at 3-9. The Minutemen are on a 4-game losing streak, with the only bright spot to mention recently being that, at least against Holy Cross, they only lost by 1. Their most recent matchup saw them fall 3-7 against UConn, and their next will be a series of contests this weekend on the road against Wichita State.
Smith College women's basketball made history this month as they competed for the first time in the NCAA semifinals. The Pioneers were able to qualify for the Sweet 16 for 3 years in a row, but never made it as far as the Final Four until now. While they ultimately fell to Transylvania University in a tough 76-65 loss, the game rounds out an impressive season for the Pioneers. This year, the Pioneers ranked number 5 nationally and won their 3rd consecutive NEWMAC championship. They also set a new record for wins in a season, winning 30 games and losing 2. Senior Morgan Morrison became the 15th player in team history to score their 1,000th career point. Morrison was also the Women's Basketball Coaches Association Athlete of the Year. In the Final Four, Morrison was the Pioneers' leading scorer with 24 points, followed by graduate student athlete Caitlin Pakunka with 21 points. Junior Ali Yamada and sophomore Jane Liu each scored 8 points and made both of the team's three-pointers. Junior Jessie Ruffner scored the remaining 4 points. Fans will have to wait until next season to see if the Pioneers can bring back this momentum for a shot at winning the national championship. Tune in next time where we'll be covering Amherst men's lacrosse in the field as they are set to play St. John Fisher University. Back to you, Ariana.
Thanks, Emily. Acts coming to the UMass Fine Arts Center this spring included Martha Graham Dance Company on Saturday, March 25th. The Fine Arts Center continues its tradition with Time's Dancer of the Century returning to the Western Massachusetts community. With positive reviews from the Times Journal and the New York Times, Graham's renovations to the Canticle for Innocent Comedians was a must-see event. Each dancer represents an element of nature, and the performance was received and reputed as magical. The performance was at Frederick C. Tillis Performance Hall, with tickets being reserved for $55, $45, and $25. We'll be covering these award-winning performances coming to Amherst throughout the spring. That's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in to Amherst Weekly Report. I'm Ariana Gonzalez, and we will see you at the same time next week.